Behind me, you see Salt Lake City, Utah, a big, grand, growing city, one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. But over 200 years ago, there was no city here, there wasn't a lot of water, and there also weren't any European settlers. Why did the saints choose to settle here, a place that almost no European would ever decide to settle in? And what was it exactly that led them to this particular spot? It was a prophecy.
Joseph Smith had just been murdered, and his followers were fleeing Nauvoo from mobs and persecutions. Now it was up to Brigham Young to lead the saints to safety, across the Great Plains, into the Rocky Mountains, to a place he had only seen in vision. A vision in which Joseph Smith appeared to him, showing him a peak with an ensign or a flag on it. And Joseph said if they built under that peak, they would prosper and find peace. Brigham Young had to find this location. My name is Casey Griffiths. I'm a professor of Latter-day Saint history with a passion of sharing the miracles and stories of the early Latter-day Saints. Join me and the Book of Mormon Central video team as we retrace Brigham Young's entrance into the Salt Lake Valley. First to Big Mountain, then to This Is the Place State Park, and finally up Ensign Peak, where we learn more about the vision that led the saints to the deserts of Utah.
Let's load up. Everybody grab something and throw it in and let's get going. It's such a family car. There's actually a stroller in the back next to all our camera equipment.
You planted this here, right?
That's for you, actually, Benji. I didn't know if you were going to make it up the hill or not. And let's get some good shots of Brendan right now at the first of the day, because by the end of the day, he's going to be like a cherry tomato. All right, does everybody have their seatbelts on?
Yeah.
Don't make me come back there.
After getting the kids in their seatbelts, we drive through Salt Lake Valley and then up Emigration Canyon to our first destination.
So we're here at the summit of Big Mountain. This is where Brigham Young would have gotten his first glimpse of the Salt Lake Valley after traveling several hundred miles on his way. If you can look around, you can see the thick, quaky, and pine growth. The road that Brigham Young and the Vanguard Party are traveling on is literally cut the year before by the Donner Reed Party. So we actually owe a ton because they create the road that we use to take into the Salt Lake Valley itself. But at this time, Brigham Young is still really sick. He's been bitten by a tick. He's come down with Rocky Mountain fever, which gives a person chills. And for several days, he was kind of out of it, to the point to where the Quorum of the 12, the other apostles that are there, are worried that he's not going to make it. They pulled up on this summit, and President Woodruff pulled his wagon around so that Brigham Young could get his first view of the valley. And Brigham Young set up and said, "It is enough. This is the right place. Drive on."
After enjoying the mountain breeze on this hot day, we drive down the canyon to This Is the Place State Park. We cool off for a bit and then head into the main plaza. It's been a couple years since I've been here, and I noticed the new remodeling with a fountain at the center. Here stands a giant memorial statue representing the first people to come into the valley. The American Indians, European travelers, and leaders of the church are all represented. There's also a nice statue here of Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. Before his death, Joseph had told Brigham that the saints would go to the Rocky Mountains. Later, Joseph would appear to Brigham in a vision and show him a new home where the saints would live. Brigham never knew for certain where the peak was, but he and the saints believed in the vision. We then drive through Salt Lake City, passing by Temple Square, the Conference Center, church headquarters, the Utah State Capitol building, and more. But before we head to Ensign Peak, I take the guys to one of my most favorite places to eat, Bruges Waffles and Frites. Popular for its Belgian-style waffles and big selection of fry sauce. We shoot the breeze in 90-degree weather before heading to our final destination, the place where they would not only fulfill Brigham's vision of a peak with a banner or a flag on it, but Isaiah's prophecy that God would lift up an ensign to the nations. Brigham Young interpreted this ensign as a flag or a banner on the peak.
So when you get here, the first thing you'll notice is the three flags. Two of these flags will be familiar to almost everybody that's from Utah. There's the Utah state flag, which is really just the crest of Utah on a blue field. There's the flag of the United States, but the one that's really kind of strange and that people won't be familiar with is this blue and white flag. But that blue and white flag is the ensign of the kingdom of God. It's the flag that Brigham Young spoke about and that he talked about as kind of what they were trying to do here. See, we sometimes don't appreciate the fact that they're not coming here to colonize Utah on behalf of the United States. They're trying to get away from the United States. They're mad at the United States because they feel like they've undergone all this persecution and nobody has ever really helped them. And finally, they didn't achieve any redress for what happened when Joseph Smith was killed. Now, this isn't to say that they hate America. They love a lot about it, but they're just kind of mad at the way the country's run and the government, the way it was there, though they uphold things like the American Constitution and the free rights that it guarantees and things like that.
And so we begin our hike up Ensign Peak in the heat of the day. I can't help but think of Brigham's hike up this peak. At the time, he was still suffering from his fever, so fellow apostles helped him up this short but steep hill. He wanted to fulfill the vision that he had seen.
So the hike isn't long, but it is steep and strenuous. Take as many rests as you want to along the way. Depending on what time of year you go, it's pretty hot. It can also be cold, but the good news is that your end goal is in sight when you made it just a little ways up the mountain. You can see the monolith on the crest of the hill, and that's where we're going. So again, it's not a long hike, but it is pretty steep. So be aware when you come. And it's okay to sit down and take a break if you need to also. Don't kill yourself on this one. It's not worth it. I mean, it's worth it, but it's not worth it to die. The camera guy sits down.
After catching our breath, we come to a scenic outlook of the Great Salt Lake. Imagine first coming here and seeing vast salt marshes and deserts. It wasn't an idle place to live, but they were seeking safety and fulfilling prophecy. We now make it to the top of the hill with a beautiful overlook of the Salt Lake Valley. The desert the saints would blossom into a rose. This is the place where Brigham said in Nauvoo, "I have seen this peak and the ensign upon it." The day he made it to the top of this peak, he hoisted a banner, actively fulfilling Isaiah's prophecy of an ensign to the nations and Brigham's vision of a hill and a banner, and now began the hard work of making the desert blossom as the rose.
One amazing thing about the early saints is that they always saw the places they were building and the places they were going with an eye of faith. So instead of just a frontier village on the edge of Indian Territory, they saw Independence, Missouri as the city of Zion. And instead of a swampy marshland that no one else wanted, they named it Nauvoo, which is a Hebrew word for beautiful. Brigham Young didn't have quite the same flair to name something Nauvoo. He just called this place Great Salt Lake City. But it must have taken a tremendous amount of faith to have seen a spot like this, and instead of just seeing a desolate desert, seeing a place that could fulfill prophecy and blossom as the rose. One of the things that we have to keep in mind in our own lives is that the Lord sometimes gives us the vision, but not the know-how to get there. And prophecy and its fulfillment is often something that we can't just sit around and wait for the Lord to bring to pass. It's something that we have to do on our own, that He gives us the picture of what we can do and where we can be, and then we go out and we make it happen. And 2 centuries later, who knows what the results will be or what will have risen in that place that was once seen as good for nothing.